We know what you're looking for.
Your specially grilled newspaper, spiced with lifestyle, sport, entertainment, politics, business, and international news. The Voice is available every Friday. Subscribe now. The Voice.
Welcome to your favorite debate, current affairs, and news analysis show, The Voice of the People, with myself. I am Khosi, the Chief Murumung, and I am joined by my co-host, that's Tumo Fangz Muremedi. And we are proud to bring to you the most cutting-edge debate entertainment. And, you know, the reason why we have this show, a debate show, we are debate lovers.
That's right.
And we believe debate is very important, it teaches all sorts of skills. It gets issues to be analyzed from multiple perspectives, so you learn a lot. But most importantly, Fangz, we learn to agree to disagree.
There you go.
And on today's issue, we are on totally opposite sides.
Completely.
What are we talking about today, Fangz? We're talking about sex toys. For motoko la teng o sa itse gore di sex toy ke eng le gore re bua ke eng o go ba tsibugelo go gore re bua
hey, the sex toy whatever, anything, any appliance selling or they are researcher for sexual pleasure. So I mean, there's things like handcuffs, there's chains, there's whips, there's dildos.
We need to talk to things.
They actually need to come in hoot. But look, it is interesting because last week, we were talking about morality with a bit of a hint of sex in it. Today, it's all about sex with a hint of morality.
Right. And you know, just to give some context, last week, I think it was BURS, they released a statement stating how they're concerned with the growing number of imports of sex toys. And these things are currently illegal in Botswana. So, we want to have the debate of whether or not it's now time to legalize these things, right?
Right.
So I believe that we should not legalize them. But that is sex toy, siama. Not that I but Fangz, ki sex toy. Right? But before we get to our few comments, let's deal with what the people had to say. We encourage you also to always share your views because you are the voice, we are just the people, so we're trying to get your views out there, right? So the first comment that we have here from Lechedzani Lonje Khabototwe Are, they have to be legalized. Kana we failing when making love international. Heba Koreana kileka suta kileko Malaysia. Lere Botswana, you don't know how to make love. Bona hela hore ho ridiha siriti as a nation, cause hariti dionyan. Hey, ke tsona ha ke dumalane le wena Mr. Lechezani. Ke tsona dio tse di sa siamang.
I want to read one more comment as well before Rakakala. Mr. Kavindama Charles Mangomba. As you know, as I know my government, we don't just legalize anything. As you think, not everything we need to copy. Most people who like using these toys are heavily addicted in various drugs. So as a nation, we don't need more rubbish. We are dealing with more already. Youth of my nation, be careful, we need you. So to us, a big no.
We've got so many things we're dealing with. We don't need more rubbish to muddy the waters. But Mr. Fangz, maybe you should just give us your insights on why you feel these sex toys should be legalized.
Chief, I believe that it's past time that sex toys and pornography be legalized in Botswana, because honestly the government does not have a place in my bedroom or anyone else's bedroom. Really, what I'm aiming to establish to you, our viewers today, is to show to you how sexual morality is subjective, and that the government's responsibility is to foster sexual liberation, not to clamp down on it. So what do I mean by sexual morality is subjective? Look, the primary reason for sex, this is the 21st century. The primary reason people have sex, Chief, is not to have babies. It's for pleasure.
No.
That's why condoms are freely distributed, in government ministries or so on. They clearly know that the people that are taking those condoms are not aiming to have sex, to have babies. They want to have pleasure. Right, so that is a position that the government already recognizes. They had to, because in order to curb the spread of HIV/AIDS, they had to recognize the reality of how people relate to each other nowadays. So now, what brings us pleasure? It's different the same way that people are different. Some people like to do this X position or Y position. Other people don't want to do that position. Some people don't even like penetrative sex. There's so many different dynamics that are involved, right? And a good example of this, how just a couple of years ago, the law banning homosexual sex was overturned in recognition of the fact that sexual expression has nothing to do with having babies anymore. It's really just about two consenting adults. We can make each other feel good, and they find a way to do that. The point is, it doesn't harm anyone. Either way, the goal is about bringing the person who's involved in the act pleasure. At no point does the government get involved with my pane, my sushi, or my sexual activities. And particularly because relationships are about relatability. It's all about, do we enjoy the same things? And the meaning, what makes those relationships meaningful, is being able to explore things that me and my partner alone, we enjoy together, and we can relate to these things together. It's a very personal thing. So and this is where I get onto the idea. The responsibility is to foster sexual liberation, not to limit it. The reason being, because now we have a social contract with our government. The idea is we give up certain rights, right, in order to gain a lot of protections. But the rights that we give up are rights that harm people. So I don't have a right to beat up other people. I don't have a right to espouse hate speech, for example, because it harms other people. But when it's things that have to do with me, myself, and my pleasure, the government really does not have a duty to be involved in that, because the government does not know what my interpretation of empowerment is. So for one person, empowerment means making millions and millions of pulas every year working as a banker. Another person, empowerment means being an artist and making no pulas at all. You know what I mean? And for another person, empowerment means having sexual liberty. The government cannot make any quantitative distinction between any of these things. To the government, as long as the citizens are happy and contributing to society. And that's what I believe this is. It's whether or not somebody decides to have sex with a strap-on dildo has nothing to do with what they do in public or at work or wherever else. So can we please keep the government out of our bedrooms?
Yeah, hey, Mr. Fangz, because, this whole notion of yours that the government shouldn't be involved in your relation, I think it's misguided, right? Because here's why the government needs to be involved. Because we're dealing with issues of a sexual nature. So as a government, you always also protect the most vulnerable members of your society. Because that's something that we don't realize with these acts, these sexual toys, these pornographic materials, is what happens when these things fall into the hands of our most vulnerable members of society, right? And now this is it, because once udi legalize o khona gore di rekisiwe hela gongwe le gongwe hela mo mpepenene mo gona very easy for young people to be able to access these things, right? And there's all sorts of harms that come with that, right? For example, there's all sorts of harms that come with pornography on young males, right? Here's one of the harms that come to them. They get a false idea of what sex actually is. That's the reason why sex is because your mind is not mature enough to understand it, right? Good, I'm just telling you, Hella, just the psychological implications. When you grow up in that sort of a society, you start to believe that sex is something that is, it's one of the arguments I'll tell you about how this demeans sex. But as a young male, you believe sex is a certain way because pornography is sex toy. Let's be honest, they're just about dominating. It's never really a depiction of what actually happens during sex. So young men, this guy on Malaysia, maybe that's actually a good thing that he doesn't know all of these very odd sexual behavior, because what it leads to, and this is another harmful effect, it leads to sexual deviant behavior. Because pleasure, so now, instead of just wanting to have sex with your partner, and this is where it comes from, all of these things of bondage and things like that, these things become inherently harmful when you how do you normal in society? You get what I mean? So the harms that come from this sexually deviant behavior gets on lead to rape culture. These are things that lead to GBV, because now you believe that you need to dominate a woman in a certain way. You need to handcuff her on all of these funny things. And these are the type of sexual deviant behavior that come from these things, right? But more over and above that, and this is my main argument, we are demeaning what sex is, right? Because let's be honest, right? Sex, it's a human activity that is an exchange of intimacy between two people. The way you've described it, Fangz, you've described sex almost like something you can just buy at the shop. Yeah, throw in some sex because, that's like what I need to empower myself. And I think this type of narrative, it's very, very dangerous on society because we are reducing the value of sex. Again, we are living in a rape country. We're living in a society already is very, very high. Once you start to introduce notions of sexual dominance, it leads to things like toxic masculinity, where men believe that it is their nature, because they don't believe sex is this sacred thing. So that's what we need to do. Look, one of our pillars, Vision 2016 or 2036, was about being a moral and tolerant society. I didn't really want to bring in the morality issue here, right? Because our morality is subjective, like you did say. But I think as government needs to draw a line to say, look, what type of behavior is morally acceptable? Because you have to understand, just because we're not Fangz, you your sexual limitations. Out there, and he's going to go all the way in terms of his sexual liberation. And now the government just needs to set a tone. Listen, guys, when it comes to issues of sex, respect, it's something that should happen between two people. It shouldn't just be something that is done with all sorts of mechanisms. Lastly, look, all I have to say about this issue of choice, because this is what you're talking about, and this is what a lot of people in the comments are saying, look, it's my choice how I want to pleasure myself. But you have to understand that choices have limitations, which is why some people about the whole pleasure you are cocaine, right? And this is why as a government you draw a line on it. Not necessarily everything that you feel is pleasurable to you is necessarily okay or good, or the government should perpetuate it in society. Sex toy things, they are un-African, they're very alien to our society. I didn't even want to throw in this argument, right? But if you just look at the origins of our society and how our social structures are built, we are built around family units, human connections. So now once you start to introduce these foreign toys, these foreign objects into your body, thanks, we're going down the wrong way.
I like how you ended there. There's some really interesting ideas there, and I'm sure me, what I liked was how you ended your speech, Nchigan, because on Tetuare, you're talking about this idea Africanism and how these things are not African. But funny enough, we're talking about sexual liberty, right? I gotta write. Everybody knows how a certain sexual position came to be called the missionary position. It's because when missionaries came out here spreading Christianity, they saw the way that Africans were having sex, and they said, no, that's unnatural. And then they stopped Africans having sex the way that they wanted to. And then now boy, and now we are on the other end talking about it's unnatural. It's not. It's really about
thanks. Name me one African sex toy and then I'll buy that argument, right? But let's deal with some of the comments, because we always appreciate to hear from you, our viewers. I'll start with a comment here from Nomvula Lesh Mokhotsi, right? So the sex toy di khona ho nnelwa hatsi. And yeah, look, Miss Nomvula, this is the discussion that we're having today because a lot of people are enraged about it, right? So we wanted to find out, what are the different perspectives. Debate is very important. This is why I read Nella Hats. I'll just read one more comment, and then you'll get to the others, Fangz. Wow, Botswana is going fast in everything among all African countries. Ijo, Janong, di kopelwa le molao, thought baba di dirisang is for their feelings. Ya ga gore mente jaanong ke mathata.
Kana ke ho. Wow, ke ho gore mente o batla mo di kamoreng. I just want to quickly, because we'd had an expert guest today, Chanel Monyere Nikolic, who's an independent therapist. And now batlile go comment but then maranyane ke ha ikare ara khanetse. So I'm just going to read the comment that she's made listening to our debate. Ari, sex toys, what an intriguing topic we have here. Asking about them in a valued-centered culture such as Botswana usually causes raised eyebrows and silent whispers about inappropriateness. But it is quite obvious to discover that they are bought, sold, and used anywhere you care to look in Africa. The sale of sex toys is illegal in many countries, although some governments rely on social shame, which is fading fast, as a means of regulation. Nonetheless, even where selling them remains illegal, sex toys still manage to creep across the border. What seems to be happening is that governments are anti-sex toys, but most people aren't, from what I have seen and heard. The internet has made it easier for anyone who wants an erotic helper to bypass the law, and it is happening. On the upside of the adult sex toys, various types of artificial intelligence have already been successfully used in medical care, and the use of new technologies is also playing an increasing role in the area of sexuality. They help with body confidence, exploring and discovering your own pleasure points. They can help improve your relationship to add adventure and variety to maintain desire. They enhance feelings of sexual satisfaction. They alleviate stress once you orgasm or pleasure yourself. Chemicals such as dopamine to assist with anxiety and low mood, as well as to help better sleep. So Munyere Nikolic, thinks that there should definitely be caution on the mode of display, usage, and selling to avoid the disturbance of public peace and breach of public morality.
And this is now why we need to bring the government into this, right? Because Ghana, there's all sorts of things. You can't just import things, just because you feel like it. Ghana, we don't know these sex toys, what they're made from. Are they Bob's accredited? Next thing you know, Utente, a thing inside of you, malfunction. Who do we hold accountable? You know what I mean? Because most of these things, Facebook. So there is no direct accountability with the providers, which is why government needs to be involved. It's not parliament debate, but when government regulate in its current format right now. We can't regulate it.
I think that's interesting how it should go to government and regulation, because in 2018 we saw the government pass a law banning the import of sex dolls in Botswana, right? And that's really surprising. I could comment Munyere Nikolic. What she was saying about shame and how governments rely on shame to regulate people. Essentially what it is, I see, is a generational disconnect, right? The millennials generally their sexual sensibilities and their moral compass with regard to sex is entirely different from batsadi barona. So the sense of shame doesn't exist the same way it does for them. But they're the ones making policies. So yes, there needs to be some level of regulation to make sure that people aren't just importing anything. But the problem is, because there is no legal route to sell and obtain them in Botswana, it means that people are just ordering them anyway, anyhow they want. They're sneaking them in.
I advocate if you feel that strongly about it. But here's another comment from Huiti Ngwaga Are. This government is way too emotionally invested in our affairs. To police our sexual habits is just taking it too far. Next thing they will be telling us about the illegality of certain sex positions. Thank you, Huiti. That's an interesting one. Look, just to play a bit on the other side, I somewhat kitalohanya hore batho ba reng wa bona. But I still believe that we generally, conservative. We are generally a conservative society, which is where I think your point is coming from. Yeah, this generational disconnect. Because we are slowly trying to shift our moral view and just copy and paste the Nijangund. And that's dangerous, Fangz, because it's a slippery slope. Where do you draw the line?
I'll agree with you in the danger. Particularly that point that you're making about exposure to banana, right?
Exactly.
To people that aren't fully matured psychologically and so on, right? I get that.
Already we have a drug problem.
Already we have that. Yeah,
now you want to add sex toys.
No, I get you. I get the concern, right? And I think even beyond banana, because I think youth, with the internet, youth have access to porn regardless of what you're going to do. But with regard to just the danger of this sort of thing, I remember, was it last year, beginning of last year, where there was a number of cases that were making it in the news where people, like this young New Zealand lady was found murdered in a suitcase. And then turns out that her boyfriend, or whoever it was that she'd had sexual intercourse with, then he had murdered her and then put her in this suitcase. And when his defense in court was that, oh no, well, I mean, we were experimenting and we tied up chains and whatnot, and that's what we do. And then he was choking her and then she died. And this apparently has happened a number of times, right? So now, this is the issue.
Sexual deviant behavior, because I think that's called autoerotic asphyxiation,
exactly.
where people arouse you, that shortness of breath turns them on somehow.
Exactly.
You see the danger now.
Yes, so I agree with you that there is a danger in some of these toys as well, because
you see now
whips and things like that, right? So I do understand the danger that can exist when you just highly bulela detail. However, I do think that the best way to approach this, right, as a society, as a responsible society, is not to say even inflatable dolls which have like really no harm. You know what I mean? Or a dildo which has been in existence for over a century and everybody knows it has no harm. So there needs to be some sort of reasoning. Okay, but some of these other things, for the sake of self-pleasure and because there are no harms, maybe we should allow them. You know what I mean?
I think it should come from the people, and the people need to put pressure on their legislators. Hardly the businessmen here. Like, I know that's the other problem, is that now these business people, they don't care about your health and safety. They're just trying to push their products. So they might even sell you one electrocute that, and now you're going to be missing a sexual organ just because of sexual pleasure. Then you're going to say your government doesn't protect you or whatever. But let's just deal with one more comment here that I found quite interesting. It's Felix Mapoti Are. Yes, there is a shortage of cucumbers and bananas in stores, and you'll think they are for consumption, but not. They go to the bedrooms. And I think you're like Fangz, so they'll find a cucumber or a banana or something.
Hey, where there's a will, there's a way. So yeah, I agree with you, and we just need to find a middle ground, I think, as a society. So the people, it's up to you to put pressure on your representatives. You believe that this is something that needs to happen. And I certainly do believe that the government needs to take a step out of the bedroom. But we are only the voice. You are the people. So do what you want to do.
Thank you for your final thought, Mr. Fangz. And just from me, lastly, look, I think as a society, step by step, you know. And here, unfortunately, I feel like our business people, they've come before our society is ready. Because now they are introducing these products to people. Some people they don't even know the sexual toy game. So, you know, this is where now as a government you need to be responsible and say, look, are our people ready for these types of products to just be openly sold in the market? And with that brings an end to today's debate show. As always, we love to hear from you. Keep the conversation going. You can keep commenting on the page. You can also check out our YouTube page. Just search there, The Voice of the People with Chief and Fangz. It's a bit long, but yeah, you'll find it in the end. We encourage debate, man. We love debate. We think debate is the best form of discourse generation, because this issue the issue you brush you under the carpet. We need to be able to talk about these things in an open and free manner, and at the end of the day agree to disagree, just like we've agreed to disagree here. I believe these sexual toys are nonsense.
And I believe that we also want, before we say goodbye, to thank once again our expert opinion from Miss Chanel Munyere Nikolic. Sorry. Thank you very much for your opinion. We really appreciate it, and see you next week. Goodbye.
That brings an end to The Voice of the People with Chief and Fangz. Thank you.
I like that idea.
We know what you're looking for.
Your specially grilled newspaper, spiced with lifestyle, sport, entertainment, politics, business, and international news. The Voice is available every Friday. Subscribe now. The Voice.